Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Hakem. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio and in the Zoom studio. Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Hakem. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and I'm so glad that you joined us this morning. We have a special guest in the 7 o'clock hour. We'll be talking with Hornell Mayor John Buckley. John Buckley will be joining us right around 7:10. You won't want to miss that. A lot going on in Hornell. To all of our friends watching from Hornell. We also, on tomorrow's program, well, it's Fridays with Phil. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will be joining us tomorrow. We're booked up all next week as well. We're going to hear from the Crystal Chords again about their upcoming event. We're going to hear from the Rotary about an event they have coming up, that international dinner. We also are going to hear from Joe Sepolinsky, Assemblyman and former Congressman. He's going to join us not on the typical Thursdays. He's going to join us next Friday. So there's a little housekeeping. That's just some of it. Mayor Bill Boland from Corning will be joining us next week. Jam-packed next few weeks, so you'll be glad that you've joined us. Okay, comment after yesterday's program, well, right towards the end of yesterday's program. I didn't have a chance to get to it. Saying, I'm glad I don't have an EV charging station at my home. First, I want to be driving without a charge due to lost power. This was the viewer who lost power for so long, and there's a lot of people, I know a lot of people going through that issue the last few days. But more importantly, I visualize the electric meter on Clark Griswold's house in the Christmas Story. Yes, I imagine that would be pricey, though I don't know. I'm not familiar with how much electricity a EV vehicle uses. We are going to talk about Tesla EV vehicles that the Democrats seem to be very opposed to at this point. We saw Mark Kelly, Senator Mark Kelly, trade his Tesla in because he does not like Elon Musk and got a gas guzzler Chevy Tahoe. So I guess certain issues, core issues, are only important until you can make a political point. We're going to be talking about the destruction that the left is currently involved in when it comes to the Tesla dealerships. That'll be in a little bit. As an update, though, speaking of Elon Musk, the New York Post editorial board, and this is an update from a story we've been bringing all along, which are the astronauts Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore, who were trapped in outer space. They are now back on Earth, as you know, even though they were stuck in space for 9 months. For their return, thank Elon Musk and SpaceX. And for the catastrophic delay, blame Biden-era dysfunction. Now, many have speculated that Biden could not be seen working with Elon Musk right before the election, so therefore let these astronauts stay stranded. The pair, who lifted off in June, were supposed to be on the International Space Station for just 10 days. They reached the station via the Boeing-made Starliner spacecraft, which set taxpayers back some $4.2 billion. The Starliner malfunctioned as it was approaching, and NASA decided the risks were just too high to let them get back on it. So began their months-long ordeal. That was a huge black eye for NASA and aerospace defense mega contractor Boeing. And Boeing's had some somewhat bad PR in the past. And also embarrassed by a spate of extremely dangerous mid-air malfunctions in its commercial airliners, as you know. And once Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race in July and Vice President Kamala Harris became the nominee, it was clear that she would, for as long as possible, avoid denting her political prospects. After all, Harris chaired the National Space Council. Remember that? That was something the media chose to willfully ignore. That's the executive level body tasked with helping drive overall space policy. So the screw up lay squarely in her lap, and taking any action, sending them home on the broken Starliner or speeding up a Musk step-in, meant exposing her already weak presidential campaign to the risk of a space disaster, and reminding America she was asleep at the wheel at her time as vice president, just as she was the border czar, if you recall. But then the media backtracked on that instantly when she became the nominee after having labeled her the border czar for 4 years. But former President Donald Trump promised to bring them home, and Musk has just done so, proving, we suppose, that immigrants really will do the jobs Americans like Harris won't. This is the New York Post editorial board wanting to get your take on their take. Were there any thanks for Musk? Well, the thanks, a wave of vandalism targeting Tesla electric cars, including a website that reportedly reveals the names, addresses, and phone numbers of Tesla owners. Now, keep in mind, you would think the Tesla owners on that list that a majority would be Democrats who want to support green energy, want to support electric vehicles. So this doxing, as it's called, is almost counterintuitive. But as the Post editorial board says, we live in an age of miracles, and all the left can do is whine, scream, and throw violent temper tantrums. So that was an update on the astronauts in a way. We're going to talk about those threats to Tesla owners, the attacks on Tesla dealers a little bit later on in the program. We do have some interesting New York State updates, and I'm looking forward to talking with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano tomorrow on the program about some of these updates. I'm not going to focus too much, or maybe even at all this morning, on the mayoral race in New York City. Getting a little old talking about former Governor Cuomo. We will talk about him, but maybe not today. Couple other quick updates. Well, hey, since I just mentioned Cuomo, let's talk about Anthony Weiner, shall we? We live in amazing times, folks. Disgraced ex-congressman Anthony Weiner, who is running for New York City Council, received a donation, they're saying here, from an unexpected New Yorker, but I actually did expect this because of what he said in that New York Post interview. But former Democrat Representative Anthony Weiner received a surprising donation, according to Fox News, and that is from his ex-wife, Huma Abedin, and Huma's sister, Heba Abedin. Despite his ex-wife saying back in 2021 that Anthony Weiner's scandals, quote, almost killed her. Now, what's interesting about this is Huma donated $175 to Weiner's campaign, and her sister donated $150 back in December. I saw a piece this morning. We're not going to go through his sordid history. But he had said in that New York Post interview that she supported him, believing that that was his rightful calling, being in politics. But I saw a piece this morning, and I can't remember where I saw it. I want to say it was Empire Report, that he's actually upset that that's all she donated, $175. That's not how Fox News is presenting it. But in a piece that I read earlier that I forgot to print out, Anthony Weiner upset that Huma didn't donate more. Now, a lot of people, because of Anthony Weiner and the scandals that he was involved in, that really shined a light because of the technology he was using on the emails of Hillary Clinton, and then the scrubbing of that hard drive. So a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people speculate that really the end of Hillary Clinton started with Anthony Weiner. Kind of an interesting take, because if you weren't aware, Huma Abedin was a big, longtime aide for Hillary Clinton. But again, Abedin donating $175 to Anthony Weiner's campaign. Do you think Carlos Danger, as was his alias, do you think he will be victorious in that New York City Council race? You know what? The way things are in New York State right now, I could see us waking up the day after the election and seeing that Cuomo is mayor and Anthony Weiner is now on the city council. Yes, I don't know. And one last update to start our first segment here. A convicted criminal whose prison sentence was commuted by former President Joe Biden is back behind bars. Willie Frank Peterson, 52 years old, was convicted of conspiracy to distribute cocaine back in 2023 and was sentenced to 6 years and 3 months in jail. His sentence began September 13th, 2023. Per a January 17th executive grant of clemency, Biden commuted Peterson's sentence to 20 months, allowing him to leave custody shortly thereafter. Now, I know there's a lot of, coming from the Trump administration, there's a lot of concern about some of these grants of clemency and these pardons because so many were done with AutoPen, and the president suggesting that Joe Biden didn't know what he was signing, that it was unelected aides that were pushing forward on these things and having the AutoPen sign them. There may be something to that. But on Monday, Peterson was booked for multiple drug-related offenses in Alabama. The Dothan Police Department charged Peterson with 2 counts of unlawful possession of a controlled substance and 1 count of possession of marijuana. He was also arrested for possession of drug paraphernalia and 3 firearms-related offenses. So that, I'm sure we'll see more of these stories, but a man who had his prison sentence commuted by President Biden now facing drug and firearms-related charges. Who would have thought that could happen? All right, when we come back, we're going to talk some New York State issues. We do have a lot to cover this morning, and we're going to be talking with Hornell Mayor John Buckley. I see some comments coming in. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in, and we'll do our best to read as many of them as we have time for. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Welcome to Pangea Global Tea House.
Pangea Global Tea House offers comfort foods of the world with over 50 teas and a sampling of cuisine from over 10 countries. Come in and try our must-try Nikujaga Japanese beef stew or Penang curry tofu specialties today.
One of the I like most about being a mortgage loan officer is helping people make dreams come true.
The most satisfying part is seeing people succeed in accomplishing the purchase of a home.
Whether it's refinancing for a lower monthly payment, a lower interest rate, or to tap in your home's equity.
Whether you're buying your first home or looking to refinance, First Heritage will be here to help.
My name is Cindy.
My name is Tracy.
My name is Peter.
My name is Deb.
We are here to guide you.
Tune in early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Hot Tubs. Hesselson's final Hot Tub Blowout Weekend Sale at their Arnhem Mall locations this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with unbelievable deals. No reasonable offer refused. Everything must go. Savings up to $5,000 and hot tubs starting just $39.99. Plus, free Bluetooth music, free chemicals, free standard delivery and takeaway rolled hot tub, and 0% interest-free financing options up to 5 full years. 3 days only, this weekend only. Hesselson's Arnhem Mall location. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm so glad you've joined us. We're going to talk about Chuck Schumer here in a little bit as well. I don't want to put that aside. I don't know if you've seen that the long knives are out for him. This is something we brought. I want to say we were ahead of the curve on this because we started to see after that one anti-Elon Musk protest that he was at, and he started being mocked and ridiculed for his reaction at that event where he said, "We will win," after having just lost in historic fashion in November. And now because he, as they say it, not me, caved on the continuing resolution, many in power and many in the media calling for Chuck Schumer to step aside for new leadership. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But first, comments from viewers. NYSEG's higher rates and less service time. Or let me try that again. NYSEG, higher rates, less service. Time to put the electric bus issue to the side for now and concentrate on policing NYSEG, who thought it was justified to okay a rate increase. I know there has been a lot of anger. We actually talked about it with Senator Tom O'Mara just a few weeks ago. I know there is a lot of anger with these new smart meters. We've had the conversation numerous times on this program, and a lot of people have weighed in with their bills, expressing their concern. So yes, it is time to put aside the electric bus mandate for schools and the fast tracking of all these kind of green energy policies by the Hochul administration, the Climate Change Superfund, which we talked a little bit about yesterday, which is punishing businesses for doing exactly what New York State required them to do, to follow all the rules. Now, 10 years after the fact, saying, you know what, we're still not happy. How about $75 billion? So yes, there's a lot of these policies that need to be pushed aside, especially to this viewer's point, for when the technology is actually there. The grid would not be able to handle this. And you've got to think of all these people. Think of the stories that we had of people losing their power for 24 hours or longer. Think of that if it were in the middle of January, and you had no heat, you had no way to eat. And if you had an electric vehicle, no way to charge it, you could be in a lot of trouble. And that's the push in New York State, is to make everything electric, and the grid is just not there to support it. Okay, comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank, and happy first day of spring. Well, thanks, Mark. The same goes to you. I see they apprehended MS-13 gang leader. Now, I never knew these gangs existed until ICE and the FBI started rounding them up and getting them out. Great job. Yeah, that's considered the leader. He's considered the leader of MS-13. They got him yesterday. That's a huge win. He was on the FBI's most wanted list, making huge moves in securing, obviously, President Trump has already securing the border, but taking out these gangs. So great news. And like you said, Mark, great job by ICE and the FBI. All right, let's talk a couple New York State issues this morning because I was surprised by this. We've been critical of Governor Hochul because when there was all these anti-Semitic protests, which we may talk about here a little bit later on as well, because Trump, as we know, arrested that one student or detained that one student for being a pro-Hamas, anti-Israel protester. Now we see a faculty member has had the same, I believe, faculty member. They worded it a little strange. A research graduate. Either way, we're going to get to the specifics of it a little bit later on. But another one has been detained. And we see some of the reactions from the universities. We are going to talk about that here in just a little bit. But the reason I'm bringing this up, when there was so much of this happening on the streets of New York City, and specifically an incident on the subway where someone wearing a mask was telling Jewish riders of the subway to basically show yourselves, raise your hands. So it was in a way to intimidate them, threaten them. And at that time, there was a lot of calls for a mask ban. Governor Hochul saying, we'll look into it. We've been critical because you've heard nothing else said about it. We assumed that the we'll look into it comment was a way to get credit for doing something while not doing something and not planning to ever do anything. Well, we did learn yesterday Hochul has made a last-minute push for the New York mask ban in the state budget, despite being silent on the issue in public. Now, like the New York Post editorial, or the New York Post, Von Golden said, despite largely abandoning the issue publicly. Sources familiar with the conversation said the governor is reviving the issue in her state budget talks with legislators. Hochul is likely to push legislation sponsored by State Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz and State Senator James Skoufis. Quote, I've been pushing for the bill, and I'd be thrilled if we pass it in the budget or outside the budget. The bill would not ban masks outright, but would create an increased penalty for harassment when someone purposely hides their face while menacing or threatening violence against a group of people. So it doesn't have as much teeth as I think most people would like, but perhaps a step in the right direction. Hochul has been largely silent on banning masks in public since she first championed the idea last year, as the city saw a wave of anti-Semitic protests and incidents in the street and on subways. She said, she told reporters, I have said before that I support some variation on restrictions on use of masks, except for medical and religious reasons. Mask use in the commission of a crime are deeply troubling to me. We're having conversations. We'll see how it goes. Now, this mask bill is backed by the NAACP and Anti-Defamation League. But sources suggest the measure could still face resistance because you still have, and we talk about one-party rule, they have a large faction of far-left lawmakers in Albany who really, it seems, at the end of the day, have the most say. And we know that Governor Hochul does not have that fight in her. The fight that she does have is to make sure that the hardworking men and women in New York City have to pay that tax, that congestion toll. She's fighting hard for that, and she fights hard against the corrections officers. But when it comes to fighting on something like this, I don't know if we'll see it. Assemblyman Ari Brown said, I hope they come to their senses. I have a feeling they won't. He sponsors a separate bill that would go further and ban all mask wearing while loitering in public with a group of 6 or more people. Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie hasn't totally dismissed doing something about mask wearing, noting that people have taken advantage of the gap in the law. It seems like very often it is up to Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie. That's one of the reasons why that involuntary commitment, can't remember the official term for it, but with people suffering mental health issues, he essentially said the devil's in the details, meaning that's not going to go through. They're not willing to support that piece of legislation. So again, the far left has taken control of Albany politics, if you were not aware by now. The legislature repealed a nearly century-old mask ban at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Sam Berger, assemblyman from Queens, said the First Amendment does not grant you the freedom to harass or intimidate others. It's ironic how those who fought to tear away the masks of the KKK are now so desperate to hide their identities. So we'll see if that goes anywhere, but that is an update because, as I said, publicly, Governor Hochul has been very quiet on this issue. But we've seen with all this intimidation on college campuses, but also in the streets of New York City and elsewhere, that this is a step in the right direction if it goes through. We are going to talk a little bit more about those colleges, the funding that these colleges are losing, the protests in the street. We've got one other Hochul update. When we come back, keep those comments coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Discover a path to receiving an exceptional educational experience with all costs covered. That's our mission. Find your future at Milton Hershey School.
My severe Crohn's disease
and my ulcerative colitis symptoms kept me
out of the picture. Now there's Sky Rizzy.
I've got places to go and I'm feeling free. Control of my symptoms means everything to me. Control is everything to me.
And now I'm back in the picture.
Feel significant symptom relief at 4 weeks with Sky Rizzy. Sky Rizzy is proven to help deliver remission
and help visibly improve damage of the intestinal lining at 12 weeks and 1 year.
Don't use if allergic. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines. Liver problems leading to hospitalization may occur when treated for Crohn's or UC.
Ready to get back in the picture? Ask your gastroenterologist how to take control of your Crohn's or UC with Sky Rizzy.
Control is everything to me.
AbbVie could help you save.
Ramjet Chilson Wilcox, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram.
Buy a new 2025 Ram Quad Cab Night Edition for $39,995. That's right, save $10,000. Offer ends March 31st.
Chilson Wilcox, selling cars a different way, the right way.
Today, Judge Mathis presides.
Don't you ever form your mouth to talk to me like that. What's wrong with you?
Is another day when someone gets what they deserve.
I'll throw you out my courtroom talking crazy like that.
Mathis Court with Judge Mathis.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Just to wrap up our discussion on Governor Hochul, according to the Watertown Daily Times, Hochul has softened her stance on hiring corrections officers that were fired over the recent strikes. Now, we know that there's a lawsuit that Chemung County brought in regards to this against Governor Hochul. We know Schuyler and Steuben have both issued strong statements against Governor Hochul. If you're not aware, Governor Hochul saying that the 2,000 corrections officers that were fired for being a part of that strike could not be hired. She signed an executive order that they could not be hired by state, county, or local governments. They could not work in that workforce. That they would remove them from the state registry of licensed police and peace officers for cause. She also signed an executive order requiring that no state agencies or local governments move to hire those corrections officers. Hochul's order was all-encompassing, blocking those COs from seeking any other law enforcement work in the state, as well as any work with other non-law enforcement agencies, offices, or local governments. That includes county sheriff's offices, which run the local jails in each of New York's upstate counties. The State Sheriff's Association has been in discussions with the Hochul administration, urging her to revoke or amend her order to allow the sheriffs to hire some of the fired COs to fill some of the estimated 1,000 open jobs at the county jails statewide. And we've talked with both Sheriff Schramm, and who's a part of that lawsuit against Hochul, and Sheriff Allard. We've talked to them about this in the past, their needs for corrections officers. So that's why they're upset. They've been asking way before this ever became an issue for more corrections officers, trying to hire people to be COs. So for Governor Hochul to do that, many called it vindictive, petty. And we had statements from Congressman Langworthy, somebody Phil Palmisano. We heard from Senator Tom O'Mara on this issue. Governor Hochul did say yesterday that her order barring local governments from hiring those officers would only stand until April 9th, but stressed that the ban on rehiring these COs would stand across all state agencies indefinitely. So understandingly so, she received some pushback, and she's now walking it back a little bit. She said, if these people want to go to work for local law enforcement, certainly that's their prerogative. But I just want to remind everybody, I'd be cautious. I'd be very cautious, because these individuals had a responsibility to protect the public and the incarcerated population, and they walked off the job for 22 days. Many of them, and that's something that's very hard to get over. She criticized the officers who walked out on the strike. She said they left their colleagues and other prison support staff unprotected, left the incarcerated people to their own devices, and risked the safety of the communities around the prison. Quote, there could have been an escape. The communities at large could have been in danger. That's what we had to deal with for 22 days. And to say that we're going to forget, I will never forget that. They're not even working for the state. They're not ever working for the state of New York. So saying that they can work at the local level, but not at the state level, ever again. She'll never forget. Taking a strong stance, and it's always it's always for the weirdest things, going against the corrections officers. Again, she's being vindictive and petty on this, all because the corrections officers had the audacity to highlight the real clear safety issues within the prisons and the working conditions. I think most people, even if they didn't have a strong opinion on the strike itself, I think most people, when they saw shifts of 24 hours, sometimes 36 hours with the mandatory overtime, I think most reasonable people thought, why can the state do that to their employees when no other job would that be allowed? The labor board would be in a heartbeat if your boss told you it was mandatory you work a 24 or 36-hour shift. And you think about those shifts in the prison where it's a very dangerous setting, and you are now running on fumes, having not slept for 24 or 36 hours, running on fumes. You can see how that would be a powder keg in and of itself. So just the fact that they brought up those issues, Governor Hochul is now, and I think the perfect word is vindictive, but now trying to walk it back a little bit. Hochul noted that they're being removed from the state police and peace officer registry, where disciplinary, training, and service-related records are kept for all law enforcement in New York. With that, the COs will have to redo all their training and licensing before being restored as a law enforcement officer again. Why would they even want to get into it at the county level at this point, with the way that they've been treated? When anyone is fired, this could be a DEC police officer. You're fired for cause. The process begins to remove your police officer status, which allows you to secure the gun. That can be renewed. It's not clear if the governor has any intention to move to block those COs from working in the county jail specifically. Sources with knowledge of a conversation between the governor's office and the Sheriff's Association said that on Monday, the governor had told the sheriffs she could move to block those COs from going back to work in a jail setting by restricting the certification they can reacquire. In that case, those COs would only be able to work as sheriff's deputies or patrol officers. A spokesman for Hochul's office only pointed back to the governor's comments from Tuesday when asked for clarification. State Republican lawmakers who have aligned themselves entirely with the COs over the illegal, not union-sanctioned strike have been criticizing the governor for a week over her order barring any state or local government offices from hiring them. The state Senate Republican Conference sent a letter to Hochul saying, "We believe this executive order is punitive and will only have a ripple effect impacting not only the 2,000 corrections officers, but also the members of the National Guard that must continue to serve in our state prisons." The Republicans said the ongoing deployment of thousands of National Guard troops has had profound negative implications for those service members, with reports in the media that they're living in stark, unsanitary, and poor conditions and continue to be deployed under a state order that provides lower pay and none of the benefits that a federal deployment offers. Quote, "Because you have not asked the federal government to mobilize our Guard under Title X, they continue to not be entitled to the same benefits, protections, and comprehensive health care coverage as our active military members." They've also requested that Hochul extend the timeline for striking COs to return to work, to rescind the firings for at least a little more time, to give more officers a chance to return to the state prisons. We did have an article that some of these people that were fired were on leave, medical leave. One story was of a lady that was pregnant and had some health issues, and she was fired because she did not return to work. So this is quite a mess. I will say I've been surprised and I don't know why I am. I don't know why I use the term surprise, but the lack of coverage, not by local outlets, but by kind of statewide outlets and even national outlets on this. 2,000 corrections officers fired by Hochul, and it's barely a blip on the national scene and on the state scene. But I did want to give you that quick update before we take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Chuck Schumer. The long knives are out for Senator Schumer. We talked about Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi loves being the kingmaker, doesn't she? This is very reminiscent of when she took Joe Biden out. Loyal to the Democrat Party for 50 plus years, Joe Biden escorted out, essentially, of the campaign by Nancy Pelosi. Now Nancy Pelosi does everything with strategy. And her strategy, she went on that program and said, "I don't do anything for nothing." And that's what Chuck Schumer did. She did that publicly because, yes, there is a war behind the scenes to oust Schumer from leadership. There is also that push, and it's a ways away, but that push for AOC to primary him in the Senate race. But I think that is I think it's next year, but it may even be 2007. So we're going to talk about Chuck Schumer when we come back. Keep these comments and waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
I would never the picture that I have. I'm the only one that's not smiling. Even though I'm with my close friends, I felt alone. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel confident. When I got Invisalign, I built my confidence. It was the best investment that I could do.
Tune in to our early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his arm.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking, only on AM Big Fox News, WYDC. Frankly Speaking Roof Cam. Brought to you by Boss Security and Horses. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We've got so many comments coming in as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. Thank you for joining us this morning. As I said, Hornell Mayor John Buckley, friend of Frankly Speaking, he's going to be our guest in the 7 o'clock hour. All right, some viewer comments. Good morning. Well, good morning. The dim-witted one-party rule Democrats, yes, a one-party rule in Albany, are and have been on the wrong side of every issue, i.e., EV mandates, funding of police, or lack thereof, right? Coddling of criminals, sanctuary cities, to name but a few irrationally conceived ideas of theirs. Don't forget to vote in 2026. Well, yes, and don't forget to vote this year, too, for the local races. It does make a difference. That's where some of the up-and-comers that we could be talking about for assembly or senate or for governor come from at the local level. All right, comment from a different viewer. President Trump is supposed to sign a resolution to dissolve the Department of Education and have the states take over. Yes, that was a late night kind of breaking news. I'm glad you brought that up, Mark. Thank you. I have it in my stack of paperwork, but I got kind of sidetracked. But Trump to order a plan, it's a plan to shut down the Education Department, which remember, you're going to see a lot of outrage in the media over this. This was a campaign promise. This was not a secret. So when people voted for President Trump, this was a part of their vote. President Donald Trump plans to sign an executive order Thursday calling for the shutdown of the U.S. Education Department, advancing a campaign promise to eliminate an agency that's been a longtime target of conservatives. Now, keep in mind, and we've heard this for a couple of weeks that this was going to happen. Keep in mind this was done from an anonymous source, so we don't know the time frame. He's talked about doing this for a long time. A White House fact sheet said the order would direct Secretary Linda McMahon, who's, remember, her job is to try to lose her job, essentially, to take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education and return education authority to the states while continuing to ensure the effective and uninterrupted delivery of services, programs, and benefits on which Americans rely. So this sort of plan to shut it down, the Trump administration has already, but it is ultimately shutting it down. Let me just reword that. The Trump administration has already been gutting the agency through layoffs and program cuts. Its workforce is being slashed in half, and there have been deep cuts to the Office for Civil Rights and the Institute of Education Sciences, which gathers data on the nation's academic progress. The department sends billions of dollars a year to schools and oversees $1.6 trillion in federal student loans. Currently, much of the agency's work revolves around managing money, both its extensive student loan portfolio and a range of aid programs for colleges and school districts, from school meals to support for homeless students. The agency also plays a significant role in overseeing civil rights enforcement. Federal funding makes up a relatively small portion of public school budgets, roughly 14%. The money often supports supplemental programs for vulnerable students, such as the McKinney-Vento program for homeless students or Title I for low-income schools. In his platform, Trump promised to close the department, quote, and send it back to the states where it belongs. Trump has cast the department as a hotbed of radicals, zealots, and Marxists who overextend their reach through guidance and regulation. So there we are. That is an update. Trump to order plan to shut down Education Department, advancing his major campaign promise. All right, different comment. As far as Hochul saying the CO left their job, I think Hochul should spend a day in prison to see what they are like. Yeah, like Dirty Jobs, like that great television program, Dirty Jobs. Yeah, and you're talking about a dirty job, and now you're running on no sleep for 24, 36 hours and doing that job where the people around you want to hurt you, it's a powder keg. And to just want to attack vindictively and petty, attack the corrections officers that just had the audacity to point out the safety issues and the workforce issues. I'll never quite understand the choices and the decisions that Governor Hochul makes on when to stand strong. Just like she says, you New Yorkers, don't worry, I'm fighting for you so you can continue to pay that congestion tax. All right. Chuck Schumer, according to Politico, Democrats pile on Schumer as bashing him goes mainstream. It's not just the far left calling for it either. It's Nancy Pelosi saying it the other day, critical of him, sending that message that it's all okay now. And I don't know how she still has that power, but it's now okay to criticize him. Representative Glenn Ivey of Maryland told constituents, quote, it may be time for the Senate Democrats to get a new leader. Ooh. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who is most likely, at least has his eye on the White House, looking to run. We know he was active last go-around. He spoke at the DNC. Speculation that he's going to run. He's a billionaire going to run for president on the Democratic ticket. And Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who looks like he's got the same idea, aired their frustration. And, of course, one of Schumer's biggest allies, Nancy Pelosi, dropped the hammer on him. Having said Tuesday, I myself don't give away anything for nothing. I think that's what happened the other day in reference to the continuing resolution. So now, 5 days after the continuing resolution vote, Schumer bashing is going mainstream. Again, this coming from far left Politico. Continuing a drumbeat of criticism that first started when he announced he would join Republicans, 8 other Democrats, and 1 independent to advance the bill to fund the government. What began with activist groups and progressive members of Congress has moved toward both the party's political center and the nation's heartland, including to possible 2028 contenders. Pritzker said, I disagree with what he did, and vehemently so. Tim Walz, you may recall he ran for vice president, said Democrats gave up their leverage. And then, of course, there was Pelosi. Pelosi saying, gave everybody a permission slip. This is what they're saying. Pelosi gave everybody a permission slip to carry on. And they did. Ivey saying, I respect Chuck Schumer. I think he had a great, long-standing career. But I'm afraid that it may be time for the Senate Democrats to get a new leader. Now, he's been defending his decision. He's been making the rounds because he has a new book out. Kind of poor timing for him with all this news coverage, unless maybe he wants news coverage. But for instance, during Chris Hayes' show on MSNBC, who would normally be just, you don't even really have to practice. You don't even really have to be concerned at all. He went after Chuck Schumer. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But when let's talk about it right now. When he was on Chris Hayes' program on MSNBC, again, this is where Democrats go to say whatever they want. It's easy. You're not going to get hit with any hard questions. Well, he was by Chris Hayes. He said, I'm a smart politician. I can read what people want. Emphasizing that while Republicans put forward a terrible, terrible bill, a shutdown would have been so much worse. I couldn't tolerate it. I couldn't live with it, meaning the government shutdown. Is it weird when someone has to tell you they're a smart politician? In Pelosi's home state, Gary Srago, a Democrat strategist, insists that these types of disagreements are just business as usual for Democrats. That's just what we do. You know, we're this dysfunctional family that agrees on one thing, and that is we want to protect the interests of ordinary working Americans. Have you done a good job showing that? Schumer hit cable again Wednesday morning, working to shift the focus to the party's messaging against Donald Trump. Now we can really go after him. Let the public know who he is. Once they know who he is, show them what we have done and want to do. Do you think the public, coming from a self-proclaimed smart politician, do you think the public doesn't know who Donald Trump is? You don't think he's got the coverage? You don't think you've had plenty of opportunity to attack him? By the way, just the access to the press and access to media that Donald Trump is given is I don't know how he does it, to be honest with you. It is nonstop coverage with whether it's him holding a press conference. Oh, wow, I'm running late. Whether it's him just talking with reporters. We're going to talk a little bit more about Chuck Schumer when we come back. Not a lot more, because we've got a lot to cover. And as I mentioned, John Buckley's going to be with us in the next hour. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
William Mattar has earned a reputation for being a straight shooter.
Because I am a straight shooter.
For being honest.
Here's what we're willing to pay.
Because I am honest.
For winning a lot.
Because we win a lot.
If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident, it matters who you hire. It matters in the experience as well as the results. Call William Mattar. Visit WilliamMattar.com.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine. I invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is
the Frankly Speaking roof cam. Look at that beautiful view of historic Market Street. That view is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from that exact street in the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. I think NYSEG needs to be investigated. They put in smart meters and eliminated jobs, but are charging more. Thank you for that. I know we've heard from a lot of people with their issues with NYSEG. We talked with State Senator Tom O'Mara a couple weeks about it, so I appreciate your concern. Comment from a different viewer. I recently have made up my mind to move out of New York State. And this is common. I know there was that poll that showed how many. It was so many New Yorkers. I can't remember the exact number because numbers don't always stick well in my head, but there was a large amount of New Yorkers who have this 5-year plan, which is, well, they can't move out today, maybe because of job or family responsibilities, but they're planning on it in 5 years. It sounds like you've made up your mind, maybe in a similar fashion. The viewer continues, and as a result of watching the governor of Virginia on Fox Live, Glenn Youngkin, I checked out what the homes were for sale or rent in that state. Based on the cost I saw, I'll have to look elsewhere, even though Virginia is a front runner in every aspect of economic development, growth and employment, etc. Plus, I don't like poisonous snakes. I can't blame you. I don't like poisonous snakes, or really any snakes for that matter. A lot of people making that 5-year plan. A lot of people, if nothing else, daydreaming about where they would go. Well, keep us updated. Keep us updated on your plan. It's sad to see so many people who have reached out. We've been on the air. We celebrated last week 2 years, and how many people in those 2 years have texted in and said, hey, love the show. Well, not all of them said that. Sorry. But, watch the show, but no longer because we're moving out of the state, or, best of luck here in New York State, but we're moving out. It's happened frequently on this program. You've seen it if you've been a viewer through the years. Comment from a different viewer. Let's be perfectly frank about this. No pun intended. Okay, thank you. Chuck Schumer has never really held a job. He went to work for state government while I believe a junior in college. We have footed all his bills and paid him. He does not represent the people of New York, only his party politics and special interest. That's how he became a millionaire. Yeah, that is a guy who has been in politics his whole adult life. And so when they say he's fighting for the working man or woman, he doesn't know what that is. I mean, he doesn't know what that experience really is. So he was confronted by Chris Hayes. Again, when he goes to MSNBC, this is supposed to be a cakewalk. It's just supposed to be an easy interview, kind of a love fest, and move on. Well, not in this instance, because Chris Hayes played a montage of Democrats tearing into Chuck Schumer over this spending vote. Peering through his trademark glasses, Schumer sat through criticism from prominent Democrats who accused him of giving up the party's leverage. They, Republicans, weren't going to negotiate with us, Schumer said. So there were two choices only. Hayes then told Schumer to take a listen, noting that the criticism came not from backseat drivers, but from major figures like House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, Senator Chris Murphy, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And I'm not going to go through what each of them said because at this point it's not necessary. Murphy said that, no, again, I don't want to go through each of the quotes. Schumer continued to defend the choice, arguing the choice of a shutdown was so severe, you're giving them the keys to the city. It would be nice if we had a third choice, but in the Senate, the only two choices were these choices. Now, this started, it started with Democrat voters, really. And then I think many politicians saw the writing on the wall and said, yeah, let's team up against Chuck Schumer so that our voters will support us, but also for fundraising. Several Democrat lawmakers in the House of Representatives believe that the New York lawmaker should step down. This coming from the New Republic. Representative from Illinois, Delia Ramirez, and Maryland Representative Glenn Ivey said, I've got no personal beef with Schumer. I think he's a talented guy. But for me, the bigger question is he going to do this again? When this comes back up in 6 months, is he going to take the same approach or not? If he's still on that track, I'm for moving on. So many people piling on Chuck Schumer, but it's not just Chuck Schumer. I think many Democrat voters are upset in general that their party is not doing enough in their mind, not being more of a resistance to Donald Trump, letting Donald Trump run free. I think a lot of those voters don't understand how the system works, and that's what happens when there's a landslide historic victory. So I think there's a little bit of that too. But anyway, I got to take a short break, and then we will be back to wrap up hour number one of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Tune in to our early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Every Judge Mathis presides
Don't you ever form your mouth to talk to me like that. What's wrong with you?
is another day when someone gets what they deserve.
I'll throw you out my courtroom talking crazy like that.
Mathis Court with Judge Mathis.
This website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we wrap up hour number one, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. A couple comments from viewers. Mark had a really good point. When President Trump went on national TV and thanked Schumer for helping pass the budget, that is when all heck broke loose. The Democrats cringed at that. Yeah, it's a very smart move from Trump to do that, kind of adding salt to the wounds. But yeah, that's when I think the more activist wing of the Democrat Party took no and said, okay, we've been pushing for a change in leadership. Now is our opportunity. And that's when more, I don't know if there are center Democrats anymore, but not the AOC wing, maybe the more Fetterman wing. How about that? Even calling for new leadership. Comment from a different viewer. Just wondering, by mandating a person to stay in prison against their will for 32 hours, meet the definition of incarcerated. They should be covered under federal law of treatment of incarcerated individuals. Ergo, indict her, meaning Hochul, under federal law. If I were on the jury, I would show her mercy. I don't know if that was a typo at the end or not. Interesting point, suggesting that the COs meet the definition of incarcerated when they're being forced to work 24 to 36-hour shifts. Thank you for that. Well, it is hard to believe. Hour number 1 in the books. We do have 1 or 2 more updates on Democrats, kind of piggybacking off of this topic with Chuck Schumer. We have quite a few things here about President Trump in general. So we'll get to all that. And Hornell Mayor John Buckley will be joining us right around 7:10. I wanted to remind you that tomorrow is Friday with Phil. Phil Palmisano will be joining us tomorrow on the program. A little bit later, next week, I should say, we'll hear from the Rotary about their international dinner coming up. Soon we're going to hear from the Crystal Chords. That may be on Monday. I'll have to get my book out. But next Thursday, we talk with Corning Mayor Bill Bolin. And then on Friday, it's former congressman, current assemblyman, and the chairman of the Steuben County Republican Committee, Joe Sepolinsky, will be joining us next Friday. So if you got any questions for any of those guests, feel free to write in to that number on the bottom of your screen. But hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2, mere moments away. Stay with us.
In every community, there are people fulfilling a calling that's more than work.
They're direct support professionals.
They're the champions who empower people to achieve their full potential.
It's not just a job. It's about making a real difference.
Join us in a career where your impact means you help someone grow and learn.
Where you're not just going to work.
You're becoming a part of someone's world.
Become a direct support professional.
And build a career with meaning.
It's more than work.
It's your calling.
There are days I feel stuck in my head. Even on an antidepressant, lingering depression symptoms can make it hard to break through. I wanted more from my antidepressant. I asked about Vraylar. Adding Vraylar to an antidepressant significantly reduces overall depression symptoms better than an antidepressant alone.
Vraylar isn't approved for elderly patients with dementia-related psychosis due to increased risk of death or stroke. Report changes in behavior or suicidal thoughts to your doctor. Antidepressants can increase these in children and young adults. Report fever, stiff muscles, or confusion, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High blood sugar, which can lead to coma or death. Weight gain and high cholesterol may occur. Difficulty moving, tremors, slow or uncontrolled body movements, restlessness and feeling like you need to move, nausea, constipation, insomnia, dizziness, increased appetite, and fatigue are common. Side effects may not appear for weeks.
Vraylar, breaking through to relief. Ask about.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you for joining us. We got a couple comments we'll read from viewers. And as I mentioned, Hornell Mayor John Buckley will be joining us here in just a little bit. All right, comments from viewers. The Democrats are in a tizzy because the only card they have to play is to hate Trump. That card is now voided. They are now dealing with a president who follows through with his agenda and shows up to work every day. And if you look at shows up for work every day is an understatement, isn't it? I'm not sure there's any breaks. It seems like one long work day. He's so busy. But to your point, if you look at the polling, CNN, I believe, that said the Democrats' favorability rating was at 29%? Because really, that's all. You can't just keep pushing your hate of Trump day in and day out and expect that to still resonate with people. Yes, there's still anger at Trump and the Democrat Party. That's fine. But we saw in November, that's not enough to win you an election. And now you have your own party angry at you because you're not doing enough. And that's what's happening, which we're going to talk about here in just a second, with Hakeem Jeffries, just like it's happening with Chuck Schumer. There was a lot of criticism of Jeffries for not doing enough, number one, to get Harris elected, but then to fight back against Trump. So that's going to tie in perfectly with what I'm talking about next. But one other comment from a different viewer: the first step to fix the state starts local, county, town, city, and school board. Think of those people first. No one does. People leave because of taxes. Yes, people don't, and that's why on this program we try to have so many local guests that are running for office, because very often people don't pay attention. If they vote, they're not even sure who they're voting for, just going into the booth and checking a name that looks familiar to them. This is not everybody. I'm not trying to insult everybody. But in many instances, not even going out to vote when it's a local year. This is a huge local year. And we're going to be talking with Joe Sempolinski about it next week, because he is the chairman of the Steuben County Republican Committee. But I couldn't agree more. And you talk about people leave because of taxes, and then they go out and vote. What do? They vote for an increased school budget. So you're right. It does all boil down to the local level, because those people affect your life more day to day. And that's why we try to do our best to get you all the information about the candidates before you head into the voting booth, so that you can be the most informed. So thank you for that comment. All right, so Hakeem Jeffries is facing Los Angeles donor backlash. He was holding a big ticket fundraiser. One attendee said, or not a non-attendee, said, "I'm not interested, skipping it," said a very dependable Democratic Czech writer. The Democrats are all about the midterms. Great. But that's next year. They're blowing it against Trump now, the producer said. A lot of that is on Hakeem, Schumer, Pelosi, and the rest of them. Ooh, Pelosi's name being thrown around in there. She's still very much trying to play kingmaker, as we saw with her criticism on Chuck Schumer. So that's very interesting, that they're blaming the kind of the old leadership. Now, Hakeem Jeffries is relatively new to that group, but still many questioning him, not believing he's doing enough. A reliable ATM for Democrats. Some Hollywood donors are disappointed with where the party has been, or rather not been, over the past 2 months. One Hollywood Democrat supporter said, "Why is there no plan, no strategy besides showing up on MSNBC? Trump said what he was going to do. Even if they thought only half of it could happen, they should have been prepared. They should be protecting people, vets, from Trump and Elon Musk." So it's not just Schumer that is receiving this criticism. In this case, donors, that Hakeem Jeffries is facing donor backlash. I think you're going to see more of this because Democrat voters are angry. We see them with the various protests that have been happening quite frequently. We can talk more about that if you want, but I don't want to. There's a few things we have to get to. And like I said, we're going to be talking with John Buckley here in just a little bit. Trump did fire both Democrat FTC commissioners. Both Democrat members of the Federal Trade Commission were fired by President Trump on Tuesday. If you had not heard that already, a move that may have major implications for the independence of the Fed, according to a former official, due to the 1935 Supreme Court decision that greatly limited the president's ability to remove officials from independent regulatory agencies like the Federal Reserve and the FTC. Trump's move to fire FTC Commissioner Alvaro Bedoya and Rebecca Kelly Slaughter has been met with protests, according to the New York Post. They called their firings illegal. According to Bedoya, Trump wants the commission to be a lapdog for his golfing buddies. The president just illegally fired me. This is corrupt, plain and simple. So we'll keep an eye on that. Now, on the college campuses, there's been obviously these anti-Semitic protests, and we've been talking about the protests in support of Muhammad Khalid We're going to talk about that in just a moment because I do have a couple updates. Sorry, I got a lot of comments coming in and I get distracted. At Georgetown University, a researcher was detained by ICE and accused of, quote, actively spreading Hamas propaganda and promoting anti-Semitism. So a researcher studying at Georgetown University was detained by federal immigration authorities over allegations by the Trump administration that the foreign exchange student spread Hamas propaganda through social media. Badar Khan Suri, an Indian national in the United States on a student visa, was arrested at his home in Virginia by masked agents from the Department of Homeland Security. His lawyer alleges in a lawsuit obtained by CBS News and Politico. Suri, who both teaches and studies at the university as a postdoctoral associate and is married to a U.S. citizen, was told by the DHS agent that his student visa had been revoked. The Trump administration alleged that Suri was actively spreading Hamas propaganda. A DHS spokesperson claimed that the Georgetown student had close connections to a senior advisor to Hamas, which Marco Rubio determined rendered him deportable. So we're going to see more of this. And you do see a little bit of a backlash, but it's kind of like Trump said. He warned that Democrats that are backing Khalil, which is similar to this case that we just mentioned, is not a great issue, but probably a step better than opposing the deportation of murderers. President Trump warned Democrats supporting anti-Israel Columbia University agitator Mohammed Khalil that backing him is not a good look, but perhaps a step better than opposing the deportation of migrant criminals. Quote, the Democrats lost big because of the stupidity of, they're backing these 90% negative things. This is what he told Laura Ingraham as it aired yesterday. He pointed to Democrat support for transgender issues, which he has previously argued cost them the House, Senate, and White House. They're all for it, and, they're fighting for it. But now they have a new one. We're going to back murderers, killers, and people that hate our country. And this is in reference to the deportations and the protests on the streets over that. We're going to back people that hate Israel, want to destroy it, people that are murderers, people that are horrible. We're going to back them, the president continued, referring to the left-wing opposition to his plan to target student visa and green card holders who allegedly support terror groups. He continued, I think that might be a 100% issue for us. They don't ever find an issue that's like a good issue. Backing Khalil is not a great issue, but backing Khalil is better than backing these other hundreds of people that were really serious criminals. It's probably a step better than that. Now, Columbia University, they are speculating that they may bow to Trump's demands. We may talk about that later. I can't run too late because we have Cornell Mayor John Buckley coming up in a moment. We'll read your comments after we're going to get done speaking with the mayor. We'll give you some more updates on college campuses. I didn't realize I was already running late. That's the kind of program we're having this morning on this first day of spring. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the waves. And let's take that short break. Coming up next, John Buckley. So don't go anywhere. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Hustling plus overbooked plus bustling plus cleaning overlooked. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's. Relax. It's done.
Our 3D mammography. It's what we do.
It's spring, and Bath Planet has one question for you. Do you feel lucky? Well, do ya? Bath Planet is excited to announce the Dream Bath Giveaway 5. In the past 2 years, we have given away 4 brand new Dream Baths, and now it's your turn. The winner will be able to design their own bath or shower, complete with hundreds of color and pattern options, multiple shelf styles, and matching safety features. It's the Dream Bath Giveaway 5. Enter now by scanning the QR code or stopping by either of our 2 locations.
Tune in to our early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Give them a call today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio and in the Zoom studio this morning. We have Mayor John Buckley. Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, Frank. Thanks for having me on. It's always fun to be here.
Is the town all healed up from the St. Patrick's Day fun?
Yeah, we actually we had a great time.
Yeah.
Mother Nature cooperated. Mm-hmm. We had beautiful weather the entire day, and we had thousands of people just descended on Hornell. The parade was packed, just wall to wall. All the clubs and bars and restaurants.
Sure.
Had a tremendously busy day, and from the reports from the police department, most people behaved themselves.
Good.
And just had a good time. But certainly a huge day here in the city of Hornell every year.
Is this, you have numerous events throughout the year. I know we talk about your Christmas celebration, all that. Do you think the St. Patrick's Day celebration is the biggest event you have?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just in the sheer numbers of people that not just that come out for it, but regionally come to Hornell. We have people travel from other states. They'll come home. People that lived here, grew up here, moved away.
Right.
Make the annual pilgrimage. It's kind of 2 or 3 times a year. You come home for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and St. Patrick's Day in Hornell.
Isn't that great? Oh, I know it's a big event. I see the pictures that people post online, and I know it's a fun time had by all. But what's new in Hornell, in the big city?
Oh wow! I mean, that's kind of
a loaded question.
Because, how many hours do you have?
Yeah, right.
So.
Well, I know last time we talked, you're always working. It's really impressive on new projects and trying to keep your area revitalized. Isn't that kind of a goal of yours?
Yeah, it is. We've been super aggressive in the pursuit of grant funding for projects because there's always things that you need to do,
right,
and there's always things that you want to do, and and how do you make those happen? The larger projects, you can't simply do it through your own budget, so you have to go out and secure state and federal grants to make those projects a reality, and we've been able to do that. In fact, in my 7 years and going into my 8th year now as being mayor, we've secured and been awarded north of $30 million in state, federal, grants that we've applied, to various projects throughout the city of Hornell, including, everything from neighborhood revitalization to infrastructure upgrades at our sewer plant, our parks. We've invested, millions of dollars, creating a new park, investing in existing parks, public safety. Just this past year, we were awarded, maybe I think it was actually $450,000, maybe a little bit more than that, to the police department for upgrades, new vehicles and equipment. We've been awarded money through FEMA to the fire department historically, year after year. So, one of my goals, coming in all those years ago, and it certainly continues, is to keep our foot on the accelerator and secure these grants to keep the community moving forward. Because you don't want to be stagnant. If you're not pursuing these grants and moving projects forward, you can become stagnant, and that's not what we want here. We want to keep the ball moving forward.
And that's not good for any city when you become stagnant. And to get $30 million, I mean, that's very impressive because most people don't know the grant process isn't that easy. It's not the easiest process in the world.
It really isn't, but we're blessed to have a wonderful grant writer right here at City Hall. Our city planner, Heather Reynolds, does an amazing job. She wrote the grant for the DRI, the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, the $10 million that we received back in 2019, early in my tenure. As long as and some other grants too. Parks, for instance, we're actually kind of on a winning streak with parks grants.
Yeah.
We've had 3 consecutive years of being awarded funding through New York State Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. One for our newly created Union Square Park. We had a project at James Street Park, Veterans Memorial at James Street Park, that we just completed. That was over $1 million project. And then just recently, Frank, and this is exciting to me, we were awarded $430,000 through Parks and Rec to do an addition to our skate park. And I say that because I used to ride BMX.
Right.
And used to spend a lot of time doing that. So it's kind of near and dear to my heart, to keep investing. But having these 3 consecutive grants being awarded through New York State Parks, that addresses all 3 of our parks right here in the city of Cornell.
That's great.
And what that really does, it really unlocks more recreational opportunities for our residents, and it draws more people from out of town too. Like the skate park, for instance. If you're a skateboarder or you ride bikes or inline skates, those people will travel. You'll travel to another community. To frequent those parks, and we've certainly seen that in the past. And even with our other parks, down to James Street, we added 6 pickleball courts.
Oh, yeah.
We've got people coming from out of town, from everywhere. This past year, we had people from Pennsylvania that were part of a pickleball group.
Yeah.
And they would travel around to different communities. We had people from all over, and the place is just absolutely packed. But there's an economic development piece of that puzzle too, Frank, because if you're traveling here, you're gonna get gas here, you're gonna have lunch here, maybe stop at a store, pick something up. So there's all these little incremental pieces to it as well.
Yeah, I think we talked about this actually last time you were on the program. Did you ever imagine that there'd be so much dedication to pickleball? People do not mess around when it comes to pickleball.
Well, I remember, early on, it was, just kind of getting its footing, and, I'd have some people mentioning, you should build some pickleball courts. Pickleball,
it's a fad, right?
Yeah. And then you remember Tom Brady, the old quarterback, got involved in it, and then, the popularity, started to, rise very quickly. And, before we knew it, we were designing the project at our park. And we wanted to include a couple pickleball courts, and then we were, really looking at it, and it was still exploding.
Oh yeah.
So we decided, okay, we're not just going to do a couple, we're going to do 6. So we added 6 more. I don't even know if that's enough. We might have to do more down the road.
Well,
but it's a great problem to have.
It is, but that's impressive that you took on that initiative to do the pickleball, because like you said, it's a little early in the game. You don't know if this is a fad that's going to last one summer, and it hasn't. I mean, you go to like you said, you go to some of those courts, and there's people fighting to get the next game.
Yeah, and that's a true story, because we've had situations where the courts are full, and then you have some people that go down and they're waiting, and they're waiting patiently, and some frustration can set in.
Sure.
So we've had those types of things, but again, it's great to see so many people taking advantage of it, getting out in the fresh air, getting some exercise, and and the beautiful thing about pickleball is it's for all ages.
Yeah.
Young and old, seniors. I've seen seniors down there just whipping up on the younger kids.
I know.
It's amazing.
Yep. No, it is pretty amazing just to see the popularity of pickleball. But it's also with these last few nice days that we don't always get in March with the weather. I'm sure they've been full. I'm sure all your parks are full, and that's why it's nice that you did kind of get ahead of the curve there and have improvements to your park.
Yeah, absolutely. And we took down the nets on the tennis courts and pickleball courts over the winter just to store them. But once the weather broke, I had the DPW get right down there. It's like, okay, let's get those nets up. We're going to be
complaining.
Going to be coming down, and they have been. So
now you mentioned you're going into your 8th year, which just seems unbelievable as mayor. And I know that you recently announced that you're running for a 3rd term. Did you ever think that you'd be in it for this long and going for a 3rd term? What did you think? Because you were relatively new to politics, but you took it on head first and changed things in Hornell. And I know you're a humble guy, so you don't want me bragging on you too much, but I mean, the fact that we're talking about Hornell being Republican powerhouse, I think most people would be shocked if they would have heard that 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah, Frank, when I was younger, I never had any, desire or, aspirations to run for public office, let alone, run for mayor.
Right.
But you get older, circumstances change, you get involved, and, it's kind of what I did. And, I got involved. I started going to meetings. Ended up serving on the zoning board of appeals for a few years, then decided to run for council. And you and I know each other personally, and I'm one of those guys that if I'm doing something, I'm doing it all the way.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So I kind of, just somewhere along the lines, I just fell in love with public service. And I've always said, I'm born and raised here in the city of Cornell, and this is my hometown. This is the place that I've always been, always loved, always want to be. And the thing about being in public service, whether you're on the council or being the mayor, for me personally, I love it because you're in a position to help people. You're in a position to make positive impact on the community, to do projects, whether it's, parks or infrastructure or whatever, you're improving the quality of life of your residents and making things better. But, there is a certain weight that goes along with that too. There's a lot of pressure being in these positions, especially in this day and age when, politics in general, has a negative connotation, right? So, it's certainly challenging. It's challenging every day. But this is community I love, and it's certainly worthwhile. And I work probably 50, 60 hours a week, but I love every minute of it.
Well, and because I shouldn't say this because you are running for re-election, but you do watch Frankly Speaking sometimes. I don't want to get you a bad reputation, but you hear us talk about how important it is to get involved at the local level, to focus on what's happening. That's why I'm so glad you could be on the program this morning, because people don't realize at the end of the day, it is the local races that probably affect your life more on a day-to-day basis than anything we're seeing at the national scene.
That's 100% true, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one of my messages, way back when I was running for council.
Right.
I always said, if you are an alderman or a city council person, you're the tip of the spear,
right?
Because your senator, your assemblyman, your congressman, you don't see them day in and day out. But your alderman, your mayor, you see him, you see him in the neighborhood, you see him down at the park, you see him at the grocery store, at the gas pump, all the time.
Right.
I can't tell you. I hold basically mini town halls wherever I go. At the gas pump, I'll bump into someone. I'm talking to them for 5-10 minutes.
I know.
And, until the guy is beeping the horn behind me. See him at the grocery store, the restaurant. But I love it. It's great just to it's incredibly humbling and a huge honor.
Of course.
To represent people too. Yeah. And I think you have to underscore that because there's a lot of responsibility that is bestowed on you once you are in office. And we like to have fun here.
Yeah.
We enjoy what we do.
Sure.
Myself, my staff. But we never forget, who we work for, and that's the residents of the city of Cornell.
And when you're out, because you're running for a third term, it is petition season. Everybody knows that. They hear me talk about it on the show. What have you been hearing from the constituents when you knock on their doors? What are some of the major issues that they're experiencing?
Well, when the mayor knocks on your door, usually they want updates.
Yeah, right.
What's going on, with the park? What's going on with the sewer plant? What's going on with, this project? What's going on with, the Route 36 project? So it turns into mini town hall.
Right.
Which for me, I love because I love being out there talking to people.
It just takes you a lot longer to get your petitions filled, right? Every door is about 20 minutes. Yeah.
There's certain people that dread carrying petitions and having to go out there. I've always loved it because it gives me an opportunity to really connect with folks and either give updates or listen to them. A lot of times it's not just simply me giving updates, but hey, what's going on in your neck of the woods? What are you seeing? What's what concerns you? What would you like to see?
Right.
So it's a good two-way communication and a great way to build those relationships and hear what's important to those folks.
Have you been lucky getting signatures this year?
Oh yeah, I've been over in my neighborhoods, and and the way our committee's set up, we have committee people throughout the city, so we try to stick in our own neighborhood, so we're not tripping over each other, knocking on the same doors. But we have a pretty good system in place, but it's all been positive.
I will say this year, people seem more receptive to opening their doors. I don't know if it's getting away from the COVID mindset, but the last 2-3 years before, it was very difficult, and I've had easily days where I'm filling up a whole sheet by just going out a couple hours in the afternoon.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing. People are, a little bit more willing to not just open the doors, but have, longer conversations. And plus the weather doesn't hurt either.
No.
It's nice.
No, exactly. So you mentioned the committee, the Republican committee, and of course we haven't spoken since the Lincoln Day dinner, but that's the kickoff to the season, right? That's arguably the biggest Republican event going.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's, arguably, but I think
Right.
it is.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough.
We had, a big event, probably the largest dinner we've had in the last several years.
Wow.
Just a huge turnout, a lot of excitement, a lot of enthusiasm. Not just, what's going on nationally, but here locally, too. We have a great slate of candidates on the city council that are running. Of course, myself, we've got, candidate running for county legislator. So, we're moving things forward here.
Yeah.
A lot of excitement and enthusiasm. And, I think people like to be a part of that and kind of, kick off the year.
And I thought it was really exciting. And I believe I brought this up on the program, but we're going to be talking with Sheriff Allard next week, and he won the Republican of the Year. That's pretty cool. I think that's the second time, isn't it?
Yeah, Sheriff Allard, great guy, someone I've worked closely with for a long time.
Oh, of course.
We certainly partner with the Sheriff's Department, with the Hornell Police Department on a lot of different investigations and initiatives. And, the Sheriff's been just a tremendous advocate and a great resource as well. And I want to throw in Under Sheriff John McNellis, who doesn't really get talked about or nearly enough, but he does a fabulous job over there too, and they make a great team together. So we're happy to present the award to the sheriff, and it was very deserved, deserved honor, and we're glad to see it.
Well, I'm going to talk with him next week. I want to hear all about it. So, looking ahead, when you talk about the petition process, you looking for the third term. Are there any goals you have going forward if you are lucky enough to win another term?
Yeah, I mean, my goals largely remain the same, and that's just to keep investing in our community, keep growing the community, and keep pursuing grant funding to make those things actually happen. When you're the mayor or a city manager, in the case of Corning, there's always needs. You always have infrastructure needs. You're always having to replace vehicles, all of those things. There's some things like, parks and things like that are very public facing.
Sure.
But there's a lot of things that the public doesn't see, right? And that's your water plant, that's your sewer plant, that's the the infrastructure that's under the ground that's so vitally important that we don't think about. We take it for granted. When you get up in the morning, you go into the bathroom, you turn the water on, magically comes down
you
the
expect
spout,
it.
And it magically
right.
disappears down the drain, and we don't think about
No.
that, right? But on one end you have a water plant, and on the other end you have a sewer plant, and both of those operate 24/7, 365. They're multi-million-dollar operations, and there's so much that goes into it. So you have to keep investing in those types of things along with everything else. So, my goals, term to term, year to year, largely stay intact, and that's just to continue moving the community forward and investing and growing our city.
And that's why, going back to the idea of local politics, I wish more people would attend meetings, because if they really saw the day-to-day that happens behind the scenes, like you mentioned, they'd be really shocked, because you do think it's parks, you think it's snow cleanup, but there is so much more behind the scenes.
There really is. And you're right, not enough people come out to meetings. I love it when we have an audience in the crowd, because we can talk about, it's one thing when you're talking to the council, because they have their packets, they know what's going on, and I'll explain certain things as we go. But when you have an audience in the crowd, for someone like me who just loves to talk anyway, I kind of hold court, and I can really take a deeper dive and inform them, and it's important to be informed too, right? Not enough people, I think, in today's age really take the time to be informed. And I understand it, because everyone's busy. You're working, you have children, you have activities, or whatever you're doing in your life, and you don't have necessarily the time to take a deep dive on every single thing. But locally is what I think matters most, because that's where we all live, and those things impact you the most.
Well, and you put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, and when it comes to transparency, because correct me if I'm wrong, don't you have a newsletter that goes out to everyone to kind of inform them of the day-to-day happenings in Hornell?
Yeah, we do. In fact, when I became mayor, in order to try to get more information out. We did a few things. We created several Facebook pages in the city of Hornell. We have the city of Hornell Facebook page that we established. Police department and fire departments also have Facebook pages. Okay. So just the dissemination of information, through those platforms has been very helpful. We totally revamped and revised our city website about 1.5 years ago.
That's great.
So that's up and running. And then the creation, as you just mentioned, the creation of the city newsletter that we send out several times throughout the year. Not only do you get an update from my office, but you get an update from each of the departments in the city, whether it's police, fire, DPW, the city chamberlain, the city clerk, and so on. Right down the line. So people, if you're not on Facebook, if you don't happen to visit the website, you get it right in your mailbox. You have it in your hand.
That's great.
You can read it, and there you go. It's a great way to get out information. Through the let's be honest. The media isn't what it was 10 years ago, at least locally, right? They don't cover meetings the way they once did. They don't attend as frequently.
Sure.
A lot of the reporting in the newspapers is more, USA Today-ish. So like the local stuff doesn't get covered. So, what do you do for, if you're a municipal official? You have to try to get that information out, and that's what we've been trying to do, and we've been pretty successful at it.
And also in Hornell, you just have an awkward, not demographic, but the location there when it comes to media coverage, because you're technically in the Elmira Corning market, right? But then Buffalo's not covering you, and people from Elmira aren't coming in. It's just, it's really tough. So that's why I think it is important to get this information out. And we started a newsletter program in Irwin, and it's so refreshing to see people say, I didn't know this about this department, or I wondered when leaf pickup was. They want to know, but perhaps they're busy and they don't want to spend a couple hours at a meeting once a month, right?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. We're not in the Rochester market.
Right.
We're not really, we're kind of quasi in the Corning Elmira market. ENY and EPM, and they'll come down and cover this. But we've got you. We've got big.
That's all that matters. You got where it counts most, buddy, right here on Frankly Speaking. On that note, so any way that people can help your campaign as you look for a third term?
Yeah, you can come out and vote.
Easy. You make it easy on people.
Again, we're out passing petitions, so I appreciate everyone's signature. Every time you sign, it's kind of a quasi endorsement of sorts. So, whenever you sign for a candidate. But the support here has been simply amazing. It's been wonderful. I feel like we have a good relationship with residents, and I'm out talking to people all the time.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, it doesn't matter out to dinner, grocery store, whatever. I'm just out having conversations with people and listening to their concerns and their needs, and we just keep moving the thing forward. But the overarching message for me is to keep things positive. Keep moving Hornell in a positive and forward direction, and the rest will hopefully take care of itself.
Great. Mayor John Buckley has been our guest. Mayor, thanks so much for being on the show. We'll have to do this again soon.
Absolutely, Frank. Thanks for having me, and have a wonderful day.
You too. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
If you measure your lawn by the acre, mow it with the #1 selling diesel zero-turn mower series for more than 5 years. With comfort, with durability, with the Kubota ZD. ACS deck technology for improved cutting performance, responsive and durable shaft drive transmissions, hands-free hydraulic deck lift, and all-day comfort. No matter how you measure your lawn, the Kubota ZD delivers. Visit your local Kubota dealer today.
AJ's Outdoor Power Equipment has 2 locations, Mansfield and Coudersport, PA. AJ'sOutdoorPower.com.
I told myself I was okay with my moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis symptoms.
With my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. But just okay isn't okay.
And I was done settling.
If you still have symptoms after trying Humira, Rinvoq works differently. Rinvoq is a once-daily pill from the makers of Humira that can rapidly relieve joint pain, stiffness, and swelling as fast as 2 weeks for some. And even at the 3-year mark, many people felt this relief. Rinvoq can stop joint damage, and in PSA, can leave skin clear or almost clear.
Rinvoq can lower ability to fight infections. Before treatment, test for TB and do blood work. Serious infections, blood clots, some fatal. Cancers including lymphoma and skin, serious allergic reactions, GI tears, death, heart attack, and stroke occurred. CV event risk increases in age 50 plus with a heart disease risk factor. Tell your doctor if you've had these events: infection, Hep B or C, smoked, are pregnant, or planning. Don't take if allergic or have an infection.
Ask your rheumatologist if switching to Rinvoq is right for you.
And take back what's yours.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDC. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you again to Hornell Mayor John Buckley for being our guest this morning. On the program tomorrow, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Yes, it's Fridays with Phil. Phil will be joining us tomorrow to give us an update on the budget process in Albany and some of the things we've been talking about as of late. So we'll be talking with him on tomorrow's program. And a week from tomorrow, Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski, former congressman, current chair of the Steuben County Republican Committee, will be joining us on Friday. We have a star-studded lineup the next 2 weeks. I'll get to some of the other ones tomorrow to announce the official times and dates of our guests. All right, comment from Ken. He writes, this may be of interest to your viewers. NYSEG, because this has been a topic that many people continue to bring up on the program, is owned by Avangrid, who is wholly controlled by Iberdrola S.A., who is based in Bilbao, Spain. You're making me work for my paycheck here today, Ken. They have energy distribution interests in 23 states and own 75 generating plants. Do you think they are interested in providing low-cost electric and gas to Americans and employing Americans, or do you think they are interested in dragging as much money as possible out of the richest country in the world? Do you think the New York Public Service Commission, who allowed the sale of NYSEG to Avangrid, is looking out for the financial interest of New Yorkers? So Ken posing some questions for you this morning. Thank you, Ken. Thanks for writing in. As an update, we had mentioned Columbia quickly before we went to John Buckley. Columbia University may bow to Trump's demands because of that $40 million federal funding deadline. Some of the suggestions, demands that President Trump has made include a mask ban and a major crackdown on campus anti-Israel protests. The deadline looms to comply or risk losing some $400 million in federal funding. Claiming the Ivy League school has failed to follow anti-discrimination laws, the Trump administration announced plans earlier this month to claw back the grants and contracts representing roughly 8% of its U.S. taxpayer funding, pending a review period which ends on Thursday. Citing unnamed university officials, the Wall Street Journal described that there is some frustration developing among the school's board of trustees, with some in favor of giving into the demands and others voicing concerns that acquiescing would mean Columbia was, quote, trading away its moral authority and academic independence for federal funds. Well, kind of what you're doing. There's an interesting piece by Matt to buy at the New York Post saying that American colleges are hoarding billions of dollars and yet still cry poverty as Trump targets their federal funding. 20 years ago, maybe even 10, there's stories about the administration cutting grants to universities and detonating thousands of campus-related jobs. They called it horrifying. But the education sob stories now flying off the presses have a gigantic lie of omission. Take, for instance, Johns Hopkins. NBC News was one of the many to highlight the grave consequences the new administration's policies have had on the famed institution, noting, quote, the changes will also have an economic impact in Baltimore because the university is the largest private employer in Maryland. NBC pointed out that about half of Johns Hopkins funding last year came from federal research dollars. It seems odd that the largest private employer in Maryland is half funded by the federal research dollars. When there's money on the line and university presidents have time to compose their thoughts, expect the ultimate in soaring attitudes. Daniels didn't disappoint. in a letter, our bond in a moment of challenge. He explained that Johns Hopkins holds a particular place in the firmament of American, indeed international higher education. And when it all boils down to it, I don't want to get into all of this. You can find the whole article yourself. But the fact is, and we've talked about this extensively in the past, many of these schools have these endowments, some totaling in the billions of dollars. That to Mr. Taib's point, it's a lie of omission that is not mentioned when you talk or when you read the media coverage of it. I can't get into all of it because it's a lengthy story and a lot of numbers, but I would recommend that you check that out at the New York Post. We got to take a short break because we are running a little late with the mayor. I had so many questions for him, and I thank him for giving us so much time. So let's take that short break, read some of your comments, keep them coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
I would never forget the picture that I have. I'm the only one that's not smiling. Even though I'm with my close friends, I felt alone. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel confident. When I got Invisalign, I built my confidence. It was the best investment that I could do.
Now is the best. Purchase your swimming pool at Hustleson's during our annual spring pool sale and get on the installation list early. Save $500 to $1,000 in every 2025 installed gold or diamond pool package. Have Hustleson's expert installation crews install it for you or do it yourself. Either way, the warranty is the same and enjoy the savings. Hustleson's also offers 0% interest financing options up to 5 years. Save on chlorine tablets, solar covers, steps, electric pool cleaners, and more. This spring pool sale will end March 31st, so come in early for the best selection. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustleson's.
Fights going on in your community by tuning in to Big Fox News on WYDC at 10 p.m. or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'll take another short break here in just a moment. Comment from a viewer: Columbia should lose its funding. Period. Thank you very much. We have a few comments that we're going to read when we come back about this violence that we've been seeing at the Tesla dealerships. Talk about that. Did you see, though, just quickly, Border Czar Tom Homan was being interviewed, and they asked him about the criticism he's been receiving from Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. He says he takes that as a sign of doing the right thing. This was on Laura Ingram's show. I take pleasure in the fact that I can live in her mind rent-free every day. That means I'm over the target. That means I'm making a difference. All right, on that note, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Get those comments in. We'll be right back.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily Jardians at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see. I'm lowering my A1C, and for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardiance can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardiance may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired, and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardiance. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardiance is really swell, the little pill with a big story to tell.
Tune in early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. A view from the roof cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Beautiful morning on Marcus Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. So Carol Markowitz has a really good article at the New York Post, and she says another Donald Trump presidential term, another spate of violence going largely ignored or even smirked at by Democrats and their media friends. And we've talked about this on the program with the attacks on Tesla dealerships. Now we learn even on Tesla owners, which is there's kind of a certain irony there when Tesla owners are most likely, I'm not saying all of them, but a good chunk of them would be Democrats because of the whole initiative to kind of virtue signal and show that you care the most by having an electric vehicle. But Tesla dealerships are being firebombed and shot at, while Tesla vehicles are vandalized and their owners assaulted. Trump-supporting influencers are getting swatted, set up for dangerous police encounters by opponents who phone in hoax distress calls. Relatives of Trump-aligned public figures, including the sister of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett and Elon Musk's brother, are receiving bomb threats. This cannot go on. The multiple attacks on Teslas aren't mere vandalism. This is terrorism exactly as the dictionary describes it. Quote, the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, and the pursuit of political aims. These vandals are terrorizing Tesla, the company, as well as Tesla owners, going so far as to dox them with an online map, all because they don't like the opinions of its CEO. It's calculated to scare, to terrorize people away from driving Teslas in order to apply political pressure on Musk. And they've had success with some of this in the past, specifically taking out CEOs in the first Trump administration. It's nothing short of domestic terrorism, is what Attorney General Pam Bondi said just the other day. The Justice Department has already charged several perpetrators in cases that could carry 5-year mandatory minimum sentences. 5 years is a good start, but it's not enough. This kind of antisocial political barbarity is utterly unacceptable in a free country. Threats of violence cannot be allowed to curtail our freedom of speech, nor should the extended families of public figures face threats to their lives and safety. The siblings of a Supreme Court justice or the head of DOJ did not choose a public life, and bullying them is disgusting. Swatting, too, is on the rise, with more than a dozen incidents aimed at right-leaning media figures reported in just the last 10 days. This isn't about politics, FBI Director Kash Patel said. Weaponizing law enforcement against any American is not only morally reprehensible, but also endangers lives, including those of our officers. Swatting isn't just a scary inconvenience. It has had deadly consequences. Police killed a Kansas man in 2017 after someone called in a fake hostage situation at his address. The swatter was sentenced to 20 years in prison. But every swatting has the potential to turn deadly. In fact, that's largely the point. Just because swatters use technology and law enforcement guns shouldn't give them a pass on the attempted murder of their political foes. Meanwhile, there's no federal anti-swatting law, making it harder to prosecute. Republicans in Congress must take action. They can reintroduce the Anti-Swatting Act, a 2015 bill that was sponsored by both Democrats and Republicans but never got a floor vote. Can Democrats really oppose using our law enforcement to target political enemies? Worst of all, much of this violence and abuse is being laughed off by people who would be weeping if the targets were their own political allies. Jimmy Kimmel, for instance, made angry and sarcastical comments about this. Please don't ever vandalize Tesla vehicles while looking mockingly into the camera after a long pause to let them know he meant the opposite. Tim Walz, last seen as the great hope of the failed Kamala Harris presidential campaign, told a crowd this week he keeps a financial app on his phone to follow Tesla and to give me a little boost whenever the stock declines. $225 and dropping, he exclaimed. Such jeers, as well as deafening silence from most other Democrats, are simply intolerable. If progressive influencers and leftist leaders were on the receiving end of such a horrid tactic, every Republican in the country would be made to answer for it. This is not who we are, right-wing media would proclaim. And rightly so. But no such calls are coming from the Democrats or their media allies. They're not being asked about this. Donald Trump ran on a platform of law and order. The increasingly rabid reaction to his presidency calls for a serious response. For the last 5 years, the violent left has run rampant with few consequences for the chaos they've sown. Republicans in Congress and the Trump Justice Department should show them that ends now. And as that article referenced, they have Tim Walz made a big note to say that he wants to boost his mood. He watches the stocks, quote unquote, plummet. Well, Musk responded to this on Twitter, saying, sometimes when I need a little boost, I look at the J.D. Vance portrait in the White House and thank the Lord. Trump's rapid response team wrote, when we need a little boost during the day at the White House, we walk around the corner from our office and admire these beautiful portraits. With, of course, the picture of J.D. Vance, or the painting of J.D. Vance. Okay, we're going to run through some quick things, so get your comments in before we wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Boy, we moved fast this morning, didn't we? We've got just a couple of quick kind of updates to give you before we move along on the day. And I want to read your last comments. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Hard to explain what this feels like. Moving piles of earth, towing up to 4,000 pounds, cutting millions of blades of grass. We could keep trying to put it into words, but nothing compares to experiencing it for yourself. You just have to get in the seat.
Right now, get 0% financing for 60 months and save up to $1,000 on select John Deere compact tractors from Lindsay Equipment.
Hot tubs, hot tubs, hot tubs. Hesselson's final hot tub blowout weekend sale at their Arnhem Mall locations this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with unbelievable deals. No reasonable offer refused. Everything must go. Savings up to $5,000 and hot tubs starting just $39.99. Plus, free Bluetooth music, free chemicals, free standard delivery and takeaway rolled hot tub, and 0% interest-free financing options up to 5 full years. 3 days only, this weekend only. Hesselson's Arnhem Mall location. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Wrapping up today's discussion as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you to the viewer who sent in this that came out yesterday. It wasn't in my stack of paperwork, but a North Dakota jury did rule against Greenpeace yesterday, ordering the environmental group to pay nearly $667 million in damages in a defamation case brought by a pipeline company called Energy Transfer. Energy Transfer claimed Greenpeace organized the historic Standing Rock protests in 2016 and 2017. The case was seen as a test of the First Amendment rights to free speech and peaceful protest amid fears of a chilling effect on actions targeting the climate crisis. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. in reference to that piece that we had by Carol Markowitz. The Democrats need to grow up. Thank you very much, viewer. Quickly, go through a couple things as we run out of time here. Trump sent a letter to Iran demanding a new nuclear deal very soon. According to U.S. National Security Council Brian Hughes, President Trump made it clear to Ayatollah Khamenei that he wanted to resolve the dispute over Iran's nuclear program diplomatically and very soon. And if this was not possible, there would be other ways to resolve the dispute. The Post editorial board said that strikes on the Houthis show Trump isn't Joe Biden's mumbling don't. And remember, that was kind of his whole foreign policy strategy, President Biden, which was when asked about what you would say to someone, some outside factor looking to attack somewhere, what would you say to them? Don't. In contrast to President Joe Biden's repeated hollow don'ts, which everyone ignored, it was action that Trump took, which is why Iran should take Trump's warning on Truth Social to heart. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran. And Tehran will suffer the consequences, and those consequences will be dire. And with that comment, Russia needs to listen as well. Benjamin Netanyahu, John Fetterman has been outspoken, one of the outspoken Democrats, and it was rare, even controversial at the time, in support of Israel. Well, John Fetterman received from none other than Benjamin Netanyahu a silver pager during an Israel visit. What can I give to a man who has everything? Netanyahu told John Fetterman. This is much like when he presented Donald Trump with the gold pagers. And that was in reference, of course, to last year's attack against Hezbollah terrorists. He said, what can I give a man who has everything? How about giving him a beeper? Netanyahu said to Fetterman. This is a silver-plated beeper. The real beeper is like 1/10 the weight. It's nothing, but it changes history, he said. Trump did praise his son, his youngest son, Barron, as Barron is about to turn 19. He said, Barron is a smart guy who is technologically savvy, while touting their very good relationship. The night before the 6'7" Barron celebrates his 19th birthday, so today must be his actual 19th birthday. He's got an unbelievable aptitude in technology. Barron is a very smart guy, Trump said of his son. All right, that does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you again to Hornell Mayor John Buckley for being a guest on the program this morning. On tomorrow's show, it is Friday with Phil. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will be our guest. We're also going to hear next week from the Crystal Chords. We're going to hear from Mayor of Corning, Bill Bolin, Joseph Belinsky. We'll get that full schedule for you on tomorrow's broadcast, so you can mark it in your calendar. But tomorrow, expect Assemblyman Phil Palmisano to be in on the program. So if you have any questions, you can text or leave a voicemail to that number on the bottom of your screen. I would love to hear from you and pass those questions along to the Assemblyman. All right, that does it for us today. Join us every weekday morning starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. I look forward to it already.
Your tap water is delicious. I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system. What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants, it's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.